Hi, and welcome to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, whole person leadership facilitator, and your host. The Human Side of Business podcast is fueled by the genuine curiosity to understand how personal characteristics and skills can be leveraged to drive individual and team performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately organizational success within business. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, expanding our learning edges, and exploring the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of organizations. I'm so glad you're here. Hi there, this is Ange McCabe, CEO and co-founder of Intuitive Performance, where our business is the success of your business. I'm a performance coach, HR professional, facilitator, and your host of the Elevate Business podcast. The Elevate Business podcast is a journey of discovery fueled by the curiosity to genuinely understand what makes people tick when it comes to their professional path, choices made, and the personal characteristics that drive performance, tangible outcomes, and ultimately success. The Elevate Business podcast is here to promote the enormous contributions of small and medium-sized businesses around the world by exploring the actions that make a workplace successful, the trends in corporate culture towards growing the emotional intelligence of an organization, and how we build whole person performance from the ground up. Each podcast is devoted to sharing knowledge, growing our learning edges, and honoring our passions with a special guest who has elevated their business, overcome obstacles, and inspires others to do the same. So glad you're here. Hi, and a warm welcome to episode 7 of the Elevate Business podcast. I'm your host, Ange McCabe, and today I have the pleasure of introducing you to Dalene Allen, Executive Director of BNI. Dalene loves hearing people's stories and is a strong connector of all people. Welcome, Dalene.
Thank you so much. And Ange, thank you. This is a pleasure, an honor to be spending time with such an amazing person.
Oh, thank you, Dalene. That means so much. So can you tell us about yourself, your company, and a bit about your journey and how you've gotten to the executive director role of BNI?
I have always loved connecting people. I have always loved hearing stories. I don't know whether it goes back to childhood, but when it was once upon a time, it was like, something magical is going to happen. And so I have always enjoyed, and I think this came back early on from my mother, was, are you listening? And so I think that meant, was I listening to the direction she was giving me, or it was just a mantra that I started to pick up. And my mother ran a gift shop, a handcraft shop at the end of our road. She raised 9 children and was resourceful enough to have her own business. I think it was for her sanity. We had to stay in the house. She got to go down and talk to people. We lived on the road to Peggy's Cove. And so she had the opportunity to meet great people from all over the world. And so very entrepreneurial, said she would pay for our school clothes and her Christmas presents this way, but I believe it was for her sanity. So as we got older, we had the opportunity to also help in the gift shop. Everything was handmade in Nova Scotia. So I began saying, where are you from? Tell me about your life. I mean, I met a conductor of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra in our little gift shop in Glen Margaret, Nova Scotia. And so from there, without realizing it, I always had a desire to connect with people and to hear something personal about them, to make a human connection. And so I started my own business, but that was after working for a number of years in other corporate and realizing I really didn't like how most businesses were run. I didn't like the culture and thought, well, perhaps if I strike out on my own. Now, here's the thing. My mother would have told me, as many parents do, don't talk to strangers. And even though I grew up, with a background in, let's say, retail merchandising, working in my mother's gift shop, and I went on to retail management, talking to strangers if they didn't come up and talk to me, I'd rather go throw up in the bathroom. So starting your own business, and it was a home-based business before many people opened a home-based business. It's popular now, but it wasn't at the time. So it was never really looked at like a real business. So of course I had to advertise myself. Well, social media wasn't like it is today. And so handing out cards was the best way to do it. Well, in order for me to get the courage to do that, I would likely have to go to the bathroom first, throw up, and then I would lose that. They usually tell you it takes you about 7 to 8 seconds. If you don't hand the card out, fear sets in. That's normal. So you hear those little messages in your mind, but it's like I learned every trick in the book to get people to talk to me first.
And so when you say about the tricks that you've learned for people to approach you, because oftentimes we are placed in arenas of either networking or we may own a business. And what are some tips and tricks that you've learned to attract people to you?
Well, since I was a home-based business, I did multitudes of trade shows, anything that I could set up my product. And usually with the company that I worked with, we provided samples. Well, most people are not allergic to free samples. So that was a way, if I was standing there next to my product, invariably, if I'm saying free samples, then somebody would come and talk to me. So that at least made it comfortable. And then as I got braver, because after a while you realize I'm holding myself back. Feel the fear and do it anyway, or when the pain of remaining the same is worse than the pain of change, you will do something about it. So I just started with little things. If I was at the grocery store and my cart was bigger than the person, I would say, why don't you go in front of me? I'm not in a big hurry today. And that would start a conversation, okay? Or at least make eye contact with somebody. If you can make eye contact with somebody and smile, see what happened? You smiled back. And so I might say, have a great day, right? They don't teach us this in school. They don't teach you how to network in school. Even make friends, right? These are some of, and this is what you teach, and everybody needs to take your personality profiling, because it will remove stress and make it easier to talk to people and start the conversation. Because to me, if you start the conversation, it has a natural flow. So again, I would do little things. Hi, how are you today? Hope you're having a great day. And say something to, if I went confidence. But again, the imposter syndrome and the fear, flight, or freeze takes over very quickly. So little things I tell people is if you put, it's getting into fall, put business cards in every single pocket. Every single pocket of every piece of clothing. I've washed more business cards likely in laundry than I've handed out. But at least if they're in your pocket, when you put your hand in, guess what? You might actually be brave enough to hand it out. And the other things that I tried to mentally teach myself was, if I don't try, I'm in no different spot, because if I don't ask, I'm already getting a no, right? But if I offer and care more about the person I'm talking to than my fear, and put myself in that situation, then empathy, you never know. You never know who needs you. And that's why starting the conversation is the most important part, because I could likely tell you a million stories on how a conversation started that led to amazing things happening, whether it was to do business or not. But to me, when we talk about wealth or net worth, it's not really about money. Now, I do rank money up there with oxygen. Okay, I do, because it provides us choices. And if you have children, you may not think it's important, but those children will tell you all of the things that they need, and they are expensive, right, Ange? You have a beautiful son. But being able to, again, to get yourself out of the picture, care about somebody more, and learning about them, and that conversation that they have. Everybody has a beautiful story that we can learn from. And so little by little, I got more comfortable. Now, we're talking, this likely took me 10 years, okay? Okay, it wasn't overnight. But between doing booths, trade fairs, which unfortunately not as prevalent now during times of the world shutting down with COVID, but more important, when we get back to whatever normal is, greatness will not be thrust upon you at home. We need to get up, get dressed, and get out of the house. Now, that also being said, where would we be right now without Zoom?
Exactly.
The connections I have been able to make on social media, now a regular phone call is not nearly as much fun because we have interaction here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right? And, eye to eye, smile to smile. It's not the same as picking up energy in a room, but it is still so much more of a connection than just, or a text.
Exactly. Nonverbal is so important, isn't it? So throughout your journey, Dalene, tell us, what are you most proud of?
That I never quit, that I kept on going, that I did learn my stats, because I think many people do not know how they can create, let's say, a sales funnel from, I always say, start backwards. Where would I like to be at the end of this year, at the end of whatever? And then I take it back to, what do I need to do on a quarterly basis? What do I need to do on a monthly basis? What do I need to do on a weekly and a daily? Mm-hmm. When I can calculate what my odds are of how many connections do I need to make in order to make an appointment to present my offer, in order to create, in my case, a new BNI member who sees the value in creating a business community to help them grow their network and their profitability in their business, that I need to know. And let's say I'll give you an average. A long time ago, a business friend built $1 million business on LinkedIn. Before we had all the other, social media things like Instagram and other things. Today, by starting conversations. So I said, well, if he can do it, I can do it. And it's much easier to do that. So I reach out, he says, do one a day. Now that may seem like not a lot. One a day, 5 days a week. There are 52 weeks in a year. That's 250 people. If you work on an 80-20, that's still 50 possible clients. If you've got a little more time, do 3 a day. And all it is starting a conversation. Like, we have all these connections. Are we utilizing them? No. Okay. So, go through their profile, do a little research, but reach out. So on a really, if I'm really looking to grow my business, I do 5 a day. That's 25 a week, 100 or 1,200 in a year, 80-20, that's 240. Okay. But what I did, and somebody taught me this early on, you either keep a piece of paper next to you and you do yes or no, yes or no. Well, I wasn't even that motivated to write that much. I took a deck of cards. Every time I get a yes, I put a pile. Every time I got a no, I put a pile. And every week or so, I would add up how many contacts I made to how many conversations actually got started. So I knew exactly how many people I needed to talk to in the run of a day in order to create the sales funnel of then moving them to a coffee, to a conversation, to a presentation, to becoming a client.
That's fantastic.
Well, little things will always make the biggest difference in moving forward.
And it seems like you've really created a roadmap for yourself in the sense of understanding the necessity of the human side of networking, and understanding that also too, logic and your metrics come into place with regards to where you want to achieve your goals throughout the year or the quarter or the week. And so with this in mind, what has been your biggest learning out of all of this?
That people do want to be connected. They usually want to be part of something bigger than just themselves. That's why organizations and associations form, and it can be good and it can be bad, but when people are working for the common good, the good is magical. The good is perfection, right? Something I took on early on was understanding, yes, my metrics, understanding what I needed to do on a daily basis to achieve my goals. But more important was also the ability to come up with let's say, a mantra for my life that served me well through the frustrations, because I'm not going to tell you it was a smooth road. But when you know what you need to do on a daily basis, it makes the long-term planning. Okay, today wasn't a great day. So my motto has always been, you know what? Things always have a way of working out. And in the deepest, darkest, it's like, you know what? It'll be interesting to see how this works out, but it will work out.
That's powerful.
So, well, and simple though. It's like, okay, I can never, here's the other part that I learned early on. I cannot control the results, but I can control the level of activity that I produce.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm activity based, right, then again, the momentum, the magic happens. But here's the thing, you must be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why taking care of the little tiny daily things, I find when people are busy, it's either they're booming with business and then zoom, eek, and then it stops. And that's where you got to say, you've got to take care of every little aspect. Farm out what you can farm out, definitely. You've got to focus in on, where am I making the most money?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, what do I like the best, right? But is that also where I'm making the most income?
Mm-hmm.
Money is the measure of the pleasure you send into the lives of others. And I find many business owners do not always value their time.
Mm-hmm.
So busy working in their business, they don't always have time to step back. And that's where you come in, to let a person, like their guiding light, to understanding the whole process in order to be able to know, in order to grow, we need to spend time on personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes a very big component in this. You can only lead as far as you can go. If you ever watch anything by Dr. John Maxwell, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, stepping back, having those people who can help you kind of get a handle on that makes whatever you do in your day-to-day business just that far more effective.
Exactly. And you've given us a lot of golden nuggets with regards to resilience and, kind of riding the roller coaster of entrepreneurship through the ups and downs. What really makes you tick, though? What has motivated you to jump into the director role of B&I specifically?
When two people come together for a mutually beneficial meeting, alliance, to work together and realize, if you have a good idea and I have a good idea, we have two good ideas. Mm-hmm. And that when we support one another, if you're a mortgage broker working with another mortgage broker, usually you don't want to share your ideas because it's like that person is in your profession and you think they're going to get ahead. Well, in my opinion, we're both going to get ahead, and it's easier and more fun to support one another. But you're likely not going to do that much business together. But if, let's say, it was a mortgage broker and a realtor who can align with each other and pass referrals back and forth because they're dealing with similar clientele, that's a win-win for everybody. Mm-hmm. Not only the mortgage broker, not only the realtor, but the most important component here, the consumer, the person who's on the buying experience or selling experience. Because when you have two great people to work with, it just makes the situation so much smoother.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how did you know that this was the right fit for you?
I have always tried to connect people, always looking. In my mind, there's never a dead end, right? There's always a possibility. And here's the thing. If I can help that person fill a need through somebody I know, hopefully, the consumer's happy, the person that's doing the service for them is happy, but I'm a little bit of the equation, right? Mm-hmm. And I love it when people call me and say, boy, if there's anybody who should know somebody, Dalene, I'm looking to meet somebody who does this. You kind of go, okay, I'm doing something of value. That if I can connect those people, we're all better off for it. Mm-hmm. Giver's gain, or the golden rule. What a great way to live your life and grow your business. Because I truly believe that when somebody, again, money is the measure of the pleasure we send into the lives of others. We all love to buy. We don't want to be sold to. Mm-hmm. So when it becomes an educational experience, learning that a mortgage is not just about a rate, or that your home and auto insurance, that the cheapest rate may not be what will serve you in catastrophic times. It's that education component that, to me, like what you do, Ange, because you love what you do, and it comes across. And that when that person is smart enough to listen to you and actually utilize the tools you give them, their whole life changes, because their business, they're doing what they love. There's harmony. And when you have harmony in what we do, then to me, it spills over into your what do you call it, your employees' lives or your contractors' lives. It overflows into your family. We make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband says, yes, I live in a bubble, but it's a nice bubble.
And you know what, as you're speaking, I seen a quote the other day, and it said, it's not about being the cup. It's not about the glass being half full or half empty. If you look at it that way, that's the incorrect way. It's about the cup being refillable. And
exactly.
That's how you land with me, Dalene, in the sense that in any situation where I've witnessed, in being in the BNI chapter and doing the networking with you, etc., if you hear roadblocks, you are the first one to kind of stand up and say, well, wait a minute, let's look at this from a different lens. Or what about this? Or did you think about that? Or did you hear about this person? Maybe we should connect you. And it's absolutely true. In any event, there's so many people that have reached out to you and you've done so many phenomenal things for them, and without thought and without expectation. And I think that's where you really bring your actions that align with your words. That is so powerful for what you do. And
yeah. Thank you. One of the things that I think all of us, because Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada, is run in many ways by small business people like you and I. Mm-hmm. And what we need to do is to support newcomers coming to our country and making their welcome good enough here. They don't want to go to Toronto or whatever. This is, other than winter, we live in just the most beautiful place in the whole wide world. Come up with a winter sport and maybe I'd like winter. But more important, that again, if we just would all care a little bit more and above the superficial conversation, to connect with a human interest will automatically take you to a level of a deeper conversation, which when you get to appreciate people and what they're really about, business to me naturally flows, just totally naturally flow. Does that make sense?
It does. What I'm hearing, Dalene, is that when we start to think about others outside of our own motivations, that's where true connections exist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Now we're going to share a little bit with you because of the personality profiling, the DISCs. If we're dealing with people, and to me, every parent needs that program to understand that the child they produce is not exactly like them, how much easier your life would be.
Yes.
And what I find, because I'm not a master at it, but I so believe in what you teach, that when you take the program and actually work it, what you find dealing with people, especially stressed people, you understand how to address them so they feel like they're being heard, seen, and understood. You know how much stress that dissipates? That is, again, we all want to be heard. We all want to be seen, and we want people to understand us. And that is the quickest way to do that.
Exactly. Just to pause for a second, Dalene, what DISC stands for is it's a behavioral profiling tool that has been around for many years. And it was actually originated by Dr. William Morrison, who also created Wonder Woman. And that's a really cool fact that many do not know. And what's great about DISC is that it doesn't place us in a box. Rather, it gives us information as to how we're showing up through dominance, influence, steadiness, or being concise or conscientious in a snapshot of time. And we have two different types when it comes to looking at the evidence-based metrics, is that there's our adapted style, so how we show up at work, and then our natural style. And when we look at those, it gives us an opportunity to see, are we in balance? What's going on with us? What are areas that we want to have for strength building or growth? And the great thing about soft skills like behaviors or emotional intelligence or motivation, for example, those are all things that we can grow, unlike our IQ, which oftentimes gets the majority of the focus. So you're absolutely right, Dalene, when it comes to understanding our clients, when it comes to business development, our children, our relationships, so inside and outside the workplace, it's really important. And I have to tell you, since I've taken DISC and other executive development courses and certifications like this, I can show up so much better for my clients and my child. I now understand that his need, to your point, is to be heard in a certain manner. And what I've also learned is that when you listen for others and when you speak for others, it deepens that connection twofold. And so now there isn't kind of that parent-child push-pull, but rather we have collaborative conversations. And I'm able to bring the same thing to my CEOs, to my leaders, to my professionals that I coach, facilitate, or train. So that's a very strong point. I got to ask, though, going back to you, because you're so good at lifting others up, Dalene, what's been your biggest influence throughout your journey so far?
Let's say early on, I'm the oldest of 7 girls. I have 2 older brothers and 6 younger sisters. So, of course, my life was, set an example, you have 6 younger sisters, which is, as a kid, you don't want to hear. No. But that taught me leadership skills. But what it also taught me to do, again, my mother would say, listen. So I would watch, I would listen, I was an observer. I was likely the person, at the party in the back corner, kind of checking out what everybody was doing. And so one of the things that I have enjoyed is, again, I'm a people watcher. I notice things, and you try to notice the little things, because sometimes it's the little things. And I'll tell you another story. Now that I've gotten comfortable, let's say, with handing out a business card or talking to people, I will invariably show up at a networking event, and I will get there early. And then I watch the first person who comes in the room who looks like the deer in the headlights. Like, what am I doing here? And I go over because I'm still a little uncomfortable, but I'll say to them, you look more afraid than me. So come on, who would you like to meet here? I know some people. Let me introduce you. And so again, by putting the focus on that person, that when I come and introduce them, even if I don't know them, it's not about me anymore. It's about how I can help this person. Mm-hmm. But I invariably get to meet that individual as well, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So again, just those little things. But also starting the conversation. Do you know there's a woman, her name is Sam, and she used to run the Maui book publishing event where authors would come and they would do their pitches to publishers. It's a big event, okay? And she said, after doing this for 17 years, I could tell in the first 30 seconds how somebody, if they were going to get a book deal, right? Really? And yes, and in fact, she pivoted to a different company after doing this. And she said, when somebody starts to say what their book is all about, but in the first 30 seconds, I'm going to take my glasses off, move this. If you can get someone to go, oh, right? So she actually started a company to teach people how to do elevator pitches.
Right.
And if there is one thing I would recommend anybody to do is to talk to likely somebody in HR who's used to doing job postings or content writer to write you up a half a dozen elevator speeches. Mm-hmm. That are clear and precise, concise, whatever you want to call it, that you can articulate in different situations. So what she says is when somebody asks you what you do, don't tell them. You kind of think, what? Right? So she gave an example of a gentleman who does software, but the way he explains it, nobody gets it. They all kind of go, right? So he would start to say, based on what she taught him was, would you, a family member or friend, ever shop online? Right? Mm. Well, let's say if you said that to my husband, the first thing he'd say is no. So you need to do kind of 3. Would you, a family member or friend, love to shop online? Well, if they said that to my husband, he said, yeah, my wife does it all the time. I create the software that makes it safe to shop online. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've got a conversation started, right? So very interesting that we can get our point across, but in such a way that the conversation flows from there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right?
And yeah. Where did you pick up all of this strength and knowledge?
Watching people, looking, listening. There's always something to observe. I used to travel a lot for business, and somebody had said to me, don't sleep, Dalene, watch. And and you'll notice little things. I think... was it Mr. Rogers' mother who said to him, watch for the helpers, Watch for the people that are making the difference when bad things happen in the world. That if we are cognizant, and I think being present, that sometimes we miss things. So we're so busy going on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, enjoy the moment and what can I glean from this? And also that when you are with a person, be totally focused on that person.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so how do you go about discovering your next steps?
That's a good question. When I sold my last business about 6 years ago, I played around with a couple of things. And it wasn't that I was done with my life, didn't want necessarily to retire. But at that point, I'd done all that I felt that I could do with the business that I had. And I just was ready for a new adventure. I didn't know what that was. Mm-hmm. So it took me a little while to find something. But remember, I've always enjoyed connecting people. So BNI, which stands for Business Network International, is an organization, the world's largest business referral organization, actually connects people. So it helps build your business locally. But what I love, because I love to travel, it gives you a global connection, mm-hmm. right? And so with internet and things like this, we can now go anywhere in the world and make connections. So look beyond your own little back door, depending upon what you do. And if you think that you can only service somebody locally, doesn't mean you can't create something further afield.
Exactly. Yeah. That's very insightful. And so before you leave us today, Dalene, what are 3 words of inspiration that you would want the world to hear?
If it's to be, it's up to me. That's more than 3.
If it's to be, it's up to me.
To me.
Where does that jump off from, or where did you get that from?
I worked with Mary Kay Cosmetics for 30 plus years, drove, pink Cadillacs, and made a ton of money, and worked for really a phenomenal organization. The whole mantra was the golden rule. So Mary Kay had unbelievably wonderful tidbits, and that's really one of the ones that I would have learned from her, many, many more. If it's to be, it's up to me. That really, when it comes down to it, we can blame other people, but I'm the person that can control the direction that I go and my thoughts, my actions, because that ultimately leads to your results.
Exactly. Thank you so much for leaving us with that insight. And thank you very much, Dalene, for joining me today.
Such a pleasure. And you all need to talk to Ange about her business.
Thank you. And I really appreciate you sharing your entrepreneurial insights with Intuitive Performance and our subscribers. For those who would like to learn more about Dalene's business, we're going to provide a link to her company profile on the Elevate Business podcast title page. Take good care.
Thank you so much.
And thanks for listening to the Elevate Business podcast. I hope you enjoyed the program. You can subscribe to future podcasts at intuitiveperformance.com, where you can also sign up for webinars and learn more about professional coaching and our facilitation solutions available to help fire up your whole person performance skills and drive actions for success. Until next time, stay true to you and take care of each other. We are all better together. Thanks for listening to the Human Side of Business podcast. I'm glad you could join us. If you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated with our latest content, make sure to visit our website. The link can be found in the episode description, where you can subscribe to the podcast, sign up for our newsletter, and learn more about our whole person leadership services. Sounds interesting? Explore the Whole Person Leadership Cohort by Intuitive Performance, a unique program that offers unparalleled support to managers on every step of their leadership journey. Our program features evidence-based assessments, workbooks, group coaching, and interactive learning experiences to help you level up your leadership skills. Reach out today to apply to one of our upcoming cohorts. Until next time, take care and stay curious.